Hey, good morning, everybody. So thank you all for coming. It's great. It feels like a family reunion, right? I got so many familiar faces in the audience here. It's really great. So today what I want to do is talk you through a path, a journey, if you will. This year, Fullcity will turn 25 years old in October. And as with anything that's 25 years old, you know, there's a lot of a story behind that, right? There's just like any relationship or any business, there's highs and lows, there's challenges, there's all kinds of things. Fortunately, this is a good story, so you won't leave here crying. But it is a story nonetheless. So I wanted to walk you through that. I think, you know, there's a lot to be learned and told through what we've done. I think, honestly, some of it is fairly unique in the community, you know, given some of the particulars about how Fullcity has grown and where it's gotten to. And I think true to the whole conversation and to the journey, I didn't want to do this conversation alone, right? I didn't want to, originally this was a presentation, I was coming up here and I was going to be the only one talking, and I thought, well, that isn't really representative of what's happened to us. So I invited some dear friends to come along and to help me with this. And am I getting it? Oh, here we go. So most of you know who I am, I think, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And so these are the friends that I invited to the conversation today. So please give a warm welcome. Brandon Hayes from Claris is going to be my MC today and going to kick us off.
Check, check.
I don't think yours is working.
He said, yeah, you're not going to hear it because recording.
So, great to meet everybody. If you don't know me, Brandon Hayes. I'm the founder of Claris, and developed a great friendship over the years with Adam. And it was a privilege to have an opportunity to kind of Q&A and interview him to hear a little bit about this journey. If you don't know, our role is for growth and expansion and moving businesses and leveling up. And this is something he and I had talked about for years as we first met, probably back in 2017.
Yes, in Chicago.
So, yes, and which is exciting to see where things have transpired from. So kick back and relax. I think you're in for a real treat. It's a privilege to get to talk to you and dig in a little bit more to your story. So this Fullcity 2.0, all right, tell us a little bit, what's that about? Obviously it infers there's a 1.0, so tell us this.
Well, well, in software you should know better, there might not be, but yeah, in this case there was, right? So I you know, in hindsight I've been thinking about our journey. Fullcity 1.0 for me represented me, right? Just me in a second bedroom in an apartment in New Jersey, banging out code. Woo, Jersey! Gabagool. Yeah, just me banging out code, right? Doing the work and also selling the work, right? At the same time. So just me.
Excellent. So obviously there might be some in here that they're a one person band, and obviously that's where you started. So any advice on this first kind of level up experience? So I mean, did you think that you were going to get to where you got to at this 2.0 phase when it was just you?
I did not. It wasn't really even a thing, right? Like I think when I first started, it was just that I loved FileMaker, right? I got so much gratification out of doing it. So why not just do more of it, right? And interestingly, I think I've told a couple people this week, jokingly, that, you know, I faked it till I maked it, right? I am not the best technical developer, never was. Surprised? But what I was really good at was convincing people to use FileMaker and to convincing people to use me to do that.
So this story kind of culminates, obviously, a couple of years ago. I walked into a keynote, and there was an unbelievable case study on your organization, and got a chance to talk with you after that. And so at this point, it seemed like there was this moment of like inflection point, right? And so just tell us a little bit about this 2.0 phase.
Yeah.
You were a one-guy shop, but then you show up here, and you're no longer a one-man shop. So
right.
Tell us the Mag 7.
Yeah, so, right. So let me get to, right. So I guess, again, along with the fact that I wasn't so good at doing the work, but I was really good at getting other people to hire us and to use Claris, that became a problem, which was that I had too much work to do. And at some point, talking with my wife about it, she was like, you should hire somebody. And I said, that seems so daunting, right? What does that mean? And then I convinced myself that it wasn't daunting, foolishly, right? That I convinced myself all I need to do is get another person to do this and put them in a room, and it'll just be more people. And that happened a couple times. It started to happen more and more. And next thing I knew, we were a team. And in 2007, we were approached and nominated to be a platinum partner. Sidebar story is I changed the name of the company that year and told somebody from Claris, I said, I'm changing the name of the company. They said, it's a terrible idea. And I was like, oh my God, that's interesting. Okay, thank you very much. I thought going along with the platinum thing was really good. Well, at DevCon that year, we were awarded Partner of the Year. And afterwards, that employee came up to me and said, so you glad you didn't change the name?
That's funny. That's great. So at this time, the topic here was during turbulent times. And so most people think present, but obviously there was some turbulence in the business that hit right around this time as well.
Yeah.
So you get this award, you're riding on some highs, but you've got a team and a culture. And I think this is going to permeate throughout the message today of how important it was when you went from this one-man band to starting to build team, that obviously one of your pillars has been culture and building this team. So what was that like, kind of turbulence number one?
Building that, I guess there was a magnetism to the people that I brought on to do the work with us, that we all shared values. We all came from similar lines, culturally the same, and everything about a lot of us was the same, but it wasn't really about that. It was, I don't know what it was, what je ne sais quoi there was in the air about this, but everybody who evolved into this team was like a family, right? And this is not unique, again, to us. I'm sure a lot of you have this when you're at this stage, right? It's very easy to be a family, right? It actually even looks like a family, right? You could put that on the back of your car in a sticker. So there was that tightness and that group together. And, some of the turbulence there was me, on one hand realizing, 6 other people, wow, then it's a business now. I'm not just, the FileMaker guy. My hands are coming out of the toolbox every day more, and I'm having to focus on different challenges. And if you're an accidental entrepreneur, like I think many of us in the community are, we didn't aspire to this. It just kind of happened by accretion, and I was like, oh man, I got to run a business. This is not what I signed up for, right? So that was the first onset of turbulence. Yeah,
absolutely. So for most of us, this is not an innate skill, people management, developing culture. But if you could speak
Thanks for the assurance.
If you could speak too quickly, though, there came a point where you needed to lean in and rely on your team, and this is kind of the point where you determine, all right, is this who we're going to run with? Right?
Yeah.
So at the same time in this turbulence, I know that you had this inflection point where there was a moment where you kind of had to step away and let them ride this. And so tell us that takes a level of trust in team. Right?
I had family tragedy, and I, had to step away and almost go on sabbatical, right? Step away and just disengage. Not intentionally, I don't even think at the time I was thinking, but it wasn't a conscious effort. It wasn't like I did something. And even as you're saying that trust that you're talking about, that wasn't a conscious thing either. It was just that we were so magnificent together, and we were such a family that my team stepped up and ran the business. Without me even having to ask, without me even having to talk about what is this going to be, what does this mean? We were so tightly knit that everybody just saw, okay, it was like water, a little bit of water came out of the cup and the water just filled the spot, right? So it just happened naturally, and that was, there were times that I do remember there were times where I was like, what am I, I thought about it. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible, right? To what debt do I owe this, right? To what debt of gratitude do I owe to this team? So that was, you could call that an inflection point.
Yeah, and I think it's a testament to what you were building, obviously, because for some people, they might have been out and just walked at that point.
Yeah.
I'm following a leader, but you had built something here. So This is interesting. You mentioned something yesterday. I took a note here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there is this place now where you're the Magnificent Seven. You're a platinum partner. They just released this case study on Furnace Records, which was incredible. So
Yeah.
I got to just pause there and
Yeah.
finish my question. Tell us about that feeling when you walked in. And saw
Yeah.
that.
So and so amidst all of this turbulence, right? The tragedy had come to a conclusion, and had to come to a point, and I decided, I don't think it happened in the summer, and I decided I don't know if I'm going to make it to DevCon, what was then we thought was going to be DevCon.
Right.
And so several I talked to, friends in the community, Janine was one of them, and said, no, you probably really should be there. It's probably what you need right now. And I thought, yeah, you know what, it is really what I need right now. So I made the effort to get to DevCon, engage, and lo and behold, we are featured in the keynote for our Furnace Records record pressing success story. And wow. And there was this thing, I know what we were talking about, right? There was this confluence that was happening at that time. I had even been thinking before this family tragedy that business, to quote Marshall Michaels, he said to me one time, in Marshall's way, he said, oh, you're a lifestyle business. And I'm like, is that a compliment or is it an insult?
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe it is but at the same time, I knew that our customers were asking, and I'm sure this resonates with many of you, our customers, because of what we did, because of the platform and what it enabled us to do for people, that started to go horizontal. People would ask us for similar things, recommendations. Who do you know I'm sure you've all been asked, who do you know for IT services, right? That kind of thing. So, but it also was within the organization, enabling the organization. And I was like, well, how do I, what do I do? How do I do that? How do I get to that next level? So to get to engage, to number one, get the big, ego boost of Furnace and just be like, oh my God, wow, we're still relevant. And thank you, Claris, for the pat on the back. And then at the same time, also, that was the reveal for Studio, right, in a lot of ways. And to see that, oh, Claris is going horizontal. This is great. Now we're seeing that the tools are not just going to be the FileMaker. We can actually start to really lean in on the platform and take advantage of it. So inflection point, it was huge, because I really felt at that point like, wow, I can move forward assuredly.
Yeah. Well, I would say many of us, small business owners, entrepreneurs, can relate. So probably in a similar situation. What's the difference between, you had mentioned I've tested the waters a little bit on leveling up. And I would say, I wrote down here, some of us get to a certain mountain peak, you kind of plateau, and you look up and you're like, man, I don't know if I want to go to that next peak, right? Mm-hmm. So there was this point where you had to obviously decide, am I going to choose to go all in? And so what did that look like? Was there a vision to say, all right, we're going to go past this lifestyle business and go to the next one? The next peak. Good. All right. That should give you hope out there. All right.
I just, again, accidental entrepreneur. I didn't know what that would look like. Strategically, I wasn't really thinking about that. I really was, and this may resonate with a lot of you too, is not, I was very tactical in my operations and running the business, right? Just that's how things ran, is I would just do whatever needed to be done next. And I never really thought, okay, I'm gonna have a 5-year plan. Actually, the thought of that kind of terrified me, because then, oh my God, I gotta stick to it, right?
Yeah. So you get to this point where you recognize, all right, I'm gonna go for the next one. Yeah. And you kind of went off the grid here. So what happened next?
Right. So, I thought back to something which was kind of key, and I had presented on this at a DevCon in the past before, which was, we never, you may find this as a surprise. I don't know how many of you ever did this, but we never did any outbound marketing, right? Or outbound sales, right? We never really, it was very much that by almost gravitational accretion, customers coming to us, making us busier, giving us the fuel to grow. There wasn't anything that was driving that outside. Right. At this point, to your point, I knew something had to change, right? I knew that this had to go somewhere else. And also, again, going to the theme of a little bit of humility that I'm trying to share here, is that I also recognize, I can't do this alone, right? And I was seeing that in other shops. I was looking at Soliant, seeing what they were doing with their leadership team and things, and I was realizing, as much as I want to be the one, still have that kind of one-man shop impetus, I just couldn't do it on my own. So, I started reaching out and talking to my team about it, and the pivotal moment for me was my team coming to me and saying, hey, have you thought about like just reaching out to our network and seeing who might be out there to help us? And I was like, oh, wow, that's like, oh, wait, you mean I don't have to do this? I don't have to go out and find a partner? I don't have to go out and find somebody to buy us, or what's that going to look like? The team said to me, and sure enough, Melissa on my team came to me and said, I got somebody for you to talk to.
And who might that be?
Well, it's funny you should ask. Rajiv Gosine, my business partner.
Excellent. Come on up, Rajiv.
Come on
We'd
up,
love
man.
to hear from you, man.
Yeah, wow.
No, yes. So,
doesn't fit on the back of the car anymore.
welcome to 3.0.
Thank you.
So I have to say, curious minds would want to know. Obviously, you're not a familiar face of the past, such as Adam in this community. So how in the world did you come to hear about this, and what did you think when you first heard about FileMaker? I wrote down here, did you even know what FileMaker was when you met Adam?
If that was on a trivia question, probably not a chance.
Okay.
I had heard about it. So my background really was in the banking space. So I was in J.P. Morgan, E-Trade, Morgan Stanley, analytics, finance, strategy, a whole bunch of different roles. It was an ultimate time in my life, in my career. I got introduced to Adam and kind of told me about FileMaker. Originally, we were looking at it from a different lens. For me, corporate America was great, but like many of you probably, I kind of wanted to get out and do something on my own. And this happened to be probably the perfect opportunity with that. And when I kind of met Adam, it was really kind of all the stars aligned for us. And for me personally, so I actually made that leap. I left corporate America and the big banks and said, all right, Fullcity is the next big corporate America for me, type thing.
Wow, that's awesome. So were you all in on FileMaker out of the get, or did you need to kind of be solidified that this was going to be the way forward after hearing about this?
It's funny. So you see all the faces on here right now. I remember when Adam and I first met, and we were kind of talking about the strategy, what we want to do. I told him we'll hire one person in the first year. I think we blew that out in the first 2 months, type thing. And part of that exercise was I was coming in eyes wide open. I said, I typically, being a data guy, I like to look at things, evaluate the market, do your analysis on it. And I said, why FileMaker? I was like, I understood the technology, but I challenged our team and Adam and everyone, said, okay, let's make sure we're making the right decision here. So we did an evaluation of different technologies, different stacks, and we landed as no, FileMaker is where we want to be. It is a leader, and I'm happy to double down on what it can produce for us.
That's awesome, and hopefully gives encouragement to you all out there. I love that. I do want to take this moment to say, Rajiv, it was sure great to have you come on the scene with Fullcity, because Adam could attest to this, and you may not know, but every year back at DevCon from 2016 and on, Adam and I would pass, or he'd come to our booth and he'd say, one day we're going to do business together, but it's not today. I'd be like, great, Adam, we're still friends. So this is 16, 17, 18, 19, and then all of a sudden you showed up on the scene and we started talking and developed a friendship. And then you look up here from the Mag 7 to this, and it's been a privilege to be a part of this growth and expansion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You
Brandon.
actually brought that to fruition.
Yeah,
Adam
I was
dream.
just backing it up, right? I was just waiting, and we did it all at once.
Of course, yes. We did 5 years worth of work in 6 months. So.
Yeah.
So honestly, as I look out here, many of you may feel like I could never attract somebody of this kind of caliber. I'm a small shop, it's the FileMaker ecosystem and Claris. How do I get somebody who's not even heard of this? So I guess what attracted you overall? And give hope to some people who are like, could I get my version of Rajiv someday? What would that feel like?
Yeah, I'll base it on, as Adam mentioned, he built a phenomenal team in terms of culture, and many of you I'm sure have. For me, when I was looking at the opportunity, it was, every business, I believe, can use FileMaker in some shape or form, right? Being in, the massive banks where prioritization is a big struggle, right? I saw organizations struggle with, who have unlimited resources, if you think about it, struggle with technology. And I was like, wow, if they're struggling with this, Everybody is struggling with this. And that was for me where I was like, you know what? I see the sky's the limit here and type of thing. And this is where FileMaker can really take every organization. Like even as we discuss it with prospects, a lot of times, they don't really care about the technology, right? It's like FileMaker is that tool that can solve so many problems. And that's really kind of helped us. So kind of going back to your question, a piece of it, right, is there's a lot of folks kind of like me, right, is if you can tell that story and say, hey, this is that vision of where you're thinking, where you're looking to do, it's possible, right? It's just looking at what's potential available in the marketplace with FileMaker and what it can accomplish, and then it's really just kind of heads down and focused, and you can do it. It's really, I really think the market here is underutilized in a sense in terms of the opportunity and penetration into the space. I do see a very long limit for this. Yeah.
If I could add to that, it's something we talked about yesterday was one of those things that I was struggling with was, and I'm sure a lot of you have had this, I had that inflection point again at one point where I realized, what we do is not about the tool. It just so happens that this tool is the best. It is best in class, right? Yeah. It has enabled us for 40 years now to do what we do. And that, in a way, is the value offering of being able to unlock these doors in organizations where the technology is almost secondary. They don't really care about the brand of the technology. It was really something I knew was key. And we synced up on that really early. And you validated that instantly.
I'll give you an example, right? Like my last role at E-Trade Morgan Stanley was the CFO of their institutional business. And so would have to be the one type of approving investments and doing those type of things. 9 times out of 10, we didn't care about who it was that someone was coming up for. Like they were asking for money, great. What is it that you're going to use it for? Didn't care what brand it was, didn't really care. And if you, again, these are some of the biggest companies in the world, and that's how they're thinking. Right, brand doesn't really, the brand isn't the driving point, it's the solution that we're trying to accomplish. And that cascades, I will tell you, from the monsters all the way down through every organization.
That's interesting. So for obviously folks out there, like where do you focus to be able to bring value if you're going to talk to an investor or a potential new business partner? Like, are there a few areas where you're like, when you look at a business, these are the things that people are interested in?
Yeah. I think, and I'll give Adam credit for this, right? He had set up a phenomenal foundation of a team, right? And any investor is going to look into it and say, the first thing they're going to look at is the people, right? No matter how great your financials are, whatever it is, it's going to be how well do you operate as a team, especially when it's a smaller team. Right. Are people leaving? Like, what are those things that they're going to look at? Because that's where the risk resides for an investor and even somebody coming in. And that was one of the things I think Adam did a phenomenal job of, was creating a really strong foundation. And for me, when I looked at it, it was like there was very little risk in terms of the existing business, right? So I could come in, the team could run it, everything would be great. I just had to focus on how do we go up from here, right? And it's a very different mindset versus if you have to come in and fix things, right? So I think a lot of you have probably created really great teams. So if you are going out there looking for this type of individual, I would harp on that. It's like, listen, we have a really great foundation, not what you have to worry about. What it is right now is how do you help us grow?
Love that.
If there was, to play on that, I mean, if there was something that I thought that enabled that, was that because I was keeping us small artificially, like I was keeping us as this boutique, right? Our customer backlog was unfortunate for them, right? Because we weren't moving at the pace that they wanted us to. We weren't providing innovation at the pace that they wanted us to. So in a way, Rajiv came in and we started peeling back layers and realizing, oh my God, there's 6 months of work here for double the team, right? It was just that really helped, I think, give some of that. And I think that's a struggle, right, for a lot of people is, oh my God, when do I add versus the backlog and how long is that going to last? And so, but you were able to say like, oh no, if we add people, it opens doors. It just doesn't unlock what's waiting in the backlog.
Yeah, and just one more piece on that, right, is adding people can be daunting, right? It's a scary thing. And you just have to be willing to take, the 1 step back, 2 step forward type thing. It's a real thing, right? Many businesses do it. And you just have to have confidence in yourself that you can make that leap forward, right? Even for me, myself, from a career perspective, a lot of people will ask me, like, why go from what you were doing to FileMaker, right? It was, the way I looked at it was, maybe 1 or 2 steps back, but now I think we're 5 steps forward as a result of it.
Yep.
I love that. So what did you think? Did you think like I could land this guy and bring him on board?
Well, let's put as a salesperson, the first thing I did was went to LinkedIn and connected with him. And then once he accepted my connection, I started scrolling. I'm like, all right. And then I want to know, who does he know? Right. So I started scrolling and I'm like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is ripe territory. Right. So as the sales guy who was going to be responsible for driving more business, I was like, all right, good. Thank God. So I don't have to tell him just yet about the fact that we don't have any outbound sales. So, yeah, I mean, it was humbling. You know, it really was humbling. And especially to meet, you know, our other partners, your brother and Wendy, you know, these people had pedigree. I was really humbled. I mean, it really was. And at the same time, it was validation.
Yeah.
You know, and I was able to take a deep breath and a step back. And it made our negotiation, the conversation we had, easier because I knew I was dealing with a professional. And right out of the gate, I mean, it took us, how long it was 4 months?
Yep.
4 months from meeting. We met the week after Thanksgiving, and we closed on March 15th.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, yeah. Testament to this guy.
Of course. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, why not?
Sure.
Let's go.
So when you say you close, are you a partnership or do you
Yes.
hire him or?
Partnership.
Yeah, so this was a full partner, which leads me, perfect question, into our next question.
Thanks, Tim.
Which is, how do you begin to split roles and functions into this? Because we all know, as kind of the sole owner, a lot of times your CEO is chief everything officer,
Yes.
so you're doing everything.
Yeah.
And now you get to this point where you bring in somebody as a partner,
Yeah.
and so for most people, they're like, okay, how do I unstick myself?
Yeah, well, I made it real easy out of the gate. I said to him, one part of this is I don't ever want to look at a balance sheet, QuickBooks. I don't even know what that stuff means. So I've gone this far without it. Can you please take that stuff over? So that was one part of it.
Yeah.
And also, I guess because I had done some soul searching, right? I knew what I wanted to do, and I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at.
Wow, so self-awareness was key here, even figuring out if this was the right person for you.
Self-awareness at Fullcity is a big part of our culture.
Yeah, I love that. And so when you stepped in, what was the function and role that you felt like, all right, this is going to be what I'm going to hone in on to take this?
Well, first thing was to take QuickBooks from him.
Yeah.
Was the first one.
Thank you again. Every day, thank you.
No, but going back to like knowing your lanes and kind of knowing your strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, I'm not the developer. I'm not a technical person. I know I'm not going to get in there and be able to give technical guidance to anybody, right? I said, Adam, that's your piece for right now. We have different players on the team have that role. So we really kind of made sure we knew who owned what part of the spectrum, right? And when you can have that trust and ownership, like I have blind trust in Adam and the team and every little circle on that board there, right? One of the big cultures that we drive is trust is a big thing, right? Adam's heard me say this before, is I tell the team, there's not a decision you can make that can bankrupt the company. So go make it, I'll trust you, and we're going to march forward. And as a result of that, so we created our lanes, everyone kind of knew what they had to execute on, and we kind of went full forward. You know, me, I was running from a business strategy perspective, financials, and expansion, right? Looking forward, how do we make sure we have the right bodies in seats?
Yeah.
Thanks to you, a lot of it
that.
as well. But it's like, really, how do I look 6 months, 1 year, 18 months ahead? How do I make sure the organization is primed for that? On the good side, but also on the downside too, right?
Yeah.
It's, everything we've talked about here has been, up and up type thing, but you always have to be prepared for the worst case scenario type thing. So we always kind of plan for that as well. So making sure that we are structured in a way that we can grow, but in a very safe and secure way.
Excellent. I think it's a good place to just kind of recap because there's some key pillars here we're talking about. So one would be the fact that this self-awareness took us from a place of recognizing what got me here is not going to get me there. Okay, and
100%.
then you mentioned something. I had to do some soul searching to see who am I and what do I want.
Yeah.
Right. So you actually have to carve out time to do that, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
when you're on the business hamster wheel of being in it and not on it, it's hard to do that.
Yep.
So both of you are at this unique point where you're kind of doing this soul searching. What is the next chapter? What's the next phase? You create that space. And so I think that should be encouraging to everybody of like, while I'm doing that, who knows who's doing that at a similar time that end up may be the perfect fit to this puzzle. So now, from there, you've separated your roles, you know what your lanes are, and so I'll go to you first, Adam. Like now you're focusing on relationships and sales and networking. Like what does that look like now? So for most people are like, wow, okay, I've got to this plateau, I made this decision, then I did a merger, I did a partnership, I brought somebody in, and so now, for most people, they wouldn't even know what that would feel like. So how do you feel now after that?
relieved. I mean, and also invigorated and challenged, right? Because it isn't like, for instance, I had to answer the question, what are we going to do about that outbound sales thing? because like that's going to scale us, right? So we had some real heart to hearts and we talked about that and we experimented, right? As you do in a business, you try things, you put a little money into something, you try, it doesn't work, you try something else. So, we started to kind of focus on how do we drive those sales. And again, Rajiv leaned into his black book and his address book and started to talk to people. And I started doing the same thing. And we realized very quickly, the outbound marketing strategy is networking. It's going in and tapping the people we know. I chose my title when we spoke, and now in hindsight, I thought to myself, oh yeah, that was exactly. Like it just came out of like a gut moment, like a chief relationship officer. Oh yeah, that feels right. But now that is really what the business is growing on. Look, somewhere 70-80% of our business is repeat business, right? Probably not surprising to many of you, and a number that probably resonates with many of you. So keeping that flywheel going and going back to it and nurturing it and growing within it, and then leveraging the people in that flywheel who know other people who need our services. That's our outbound sales strategy. Again, we never spent a dime on AdWords in the history of the company, 25 years, right? We never, Danielle is our marketing person now, and that I was like, oh my God, that's the best thing ever. Like it took us 25 years to have somebody who could speak about the company specifically and market for us. So does that answer your question? I think.
No, 100%. But I want to emphasize this because for some, networking feels like, oh my goodness, I'm sweating right now. And I know it comes a little bit naturally.
Little bit. It's what I tell him. I'm like, when I'm feeling bad, I need to get out and talk to people.
Right. For someone who's not that, but they're maybe in a leadership or ownership position, can you just emphasize how vital this is? That you have to, at some point, figure this out. If you're not going to go hardcore outbound AdWords, this is the strategy of somebody who's not going that route?
Yeah, it is, and I don't advise that in a scary way. I think this is natural. Again, many of us are more introverted and don't find as much of a drive to do that. They don't find it to be fulfilling, but it's really interesting in a way. Just leveraging the passion that we have for this platform. It should at some point give you enough impetus to go out and start to talk about it to people, right? And then just start to ask gentle questions like, hey, if I helped you, who else do you know that I could help, right? Who else could benefit from something like this? It's just I think there's a very gentle approach, and I'm ready to be hired as a consultant and a coach on this if you want. But,
No,
but what's that?
He's not. I am tagged. Okay, you got other things to focus on.
That's true. Yeah, outbound marketing.
Do you feel that this component of this networking, what I love about this is some people feel like, I'm going to feel like that used cars mini sale, or I'm just trying to get the sell. But I think what you're saying is it's not relationally based, and it's not that.
That's not it.
Sometimes we've got to unlearn what we think or assume this is going to feel like.
Yes. And that kind of salesy outbound, like that thing that you're talking about is something we've talked about. I made it clear. I said, that's not me. I'm not going to pound the phones, right? We know that. We
tried it.
It
didn't work.
And it didn't work. So yeah, it's not that. I like to refer to as consultative sales. I don't know if that's something I made up but it's just by helping people and offering them solutions, that's how you sell. I say it's that easy.
Yeah. Can you feel the weight lift out of the room? Everyone's like, oh, I could do that. Right?
There's a term I'll mention, right? Is you've probably heard other people say it, right? Is you earn the right to ask, right? That's
great.
a big thing, right? Is many of your clients, I'm sure they're delighted with what you do, right? You've built trust. You've probably been working with them with a year. You've earned that right, and a lot of clients will be flattered, right, that you even asked that. And even for me, I'm similar to Adam, is like I love networking, I love people, I just love business in general. And there's people I'll meet, and it might be 2 years later, they'll call me, it's like, hey, I need so-and-so, right? But it's building that trust over many, many years and making sure like relationships are not a quick thing, right? And that's the one thing I think a lot of people struggle with, is that if I put some time in, I should get something right away. It's like, no, it's kind of like you got to put the time in, build on that relationship, and it has to be honest, right? I can't just be your friend just because I want your business, right? There has to be a mutual benefit.
100%. It may take 7 years before you partner together.
That's why, right? Exactly. That's why so many of the metaphors that people use for this are related to growing plants, right, and nurturing and harvesting and all those things. Is because it is that.
Yeah, there's a genuineness to this, which is what you're saying, and it's like there could be someone on the poor car lot people, but you could be the most genuine person. You're a great family man or whatever, but when you go there, you know they have one thing in mind. They're trying to sell you something, and people can, all of us can sniff that out a mile away. Nobody likes to be sold like that. So what you're saying is you take a genuine interest in people and in what they're doing, and eventually, and I don't know if this is true for you two, but it is for me, like, you would think, oh, you're happy with this product or service. You like me. Of course you're going to send referrals and business my way. But it feels like until you ask, it's not at the forefront of people's minds. So what you're saying is you earn this right to ask, but you actually do have to ask at some point. Would you agree with that?
Totally right. And doing it in a way that's, it's advantageous to everyone, right? Because your partners know, your clients know that the stronger you are, the stronger support you can give them, right? It's a common thing, right? And even Adam and I have talked about this, is also knowing where in the organization, right, is a big thing, is who to ask, how to work through the organization of different layers. We do a lot of this is we actually look at pretty much every one of our clients, and we kind of see the different roles, and we kind of approach it in a very methodical way. And that's the other thing is too, is not every client's the same.
That's also true.
Think about it in different manners.
So, Rajiv, where do you go from here? Because I get the vibe that you're not going to be the guy who gets to this plateau and peak and is
3.0 is not the future.
So 3.0 is not good enough. So tell us, like, where are we going?
Yeah, the big thing when I look at the keynote yesterday as an example, right? It gives me so much excitement and faith in kind of the approach that we've taken, right?
Agreed.
March 15th marked 4 years for us, and when I look back at our original business plan, we're probably 2 or 3x where we expected to be. That's awesome. Right? And it's testament to the entire team, but I just think there's so much more opportunity in front of us, right? If I look at a lot of the new business that we brought in this year, if you ask half of the clients, they probably have no idea what FileMaker is. Wow. Right, and it's a phenomenal thing where people just have this need. But I do think we are hopefully going to continue to grow and double down on the application. All right, double down on FileMaker. We have no intent of going anywhere else in a sense, but it's going to be the backbone of what we do. But there are some gaps in terms of what we know is our expertise. We know what our lanes are, and I think I don't know if you saw some of the signs around, but potentially there's some things happening.
Yeah, so funny you should mention that. So, as you and I built a friendship and began talking about growth and expansion, which I feel like you and I could geek out on for hours, eventually a little birdie, aka LinkedIn, told me as we're pulling up to this that there's an announcement that there is another level up or an inflection point that's recently happened. And there you go. And so, without further ado, we'd like to bring up the 4.0 and welcome Danny Mack to the stage.
Woo! Hear, hear.
Yes. Danny, hi. Tell us, as the welcome party's
You
here.
won't hear it.
You won't hear it.
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Oh,
I learned that awkwardly the hard way. So, Danny, tell us. How are you? What's happened? This has to feel like a little bit of a different engage than maybe last year. Oh my word! Let's just pause for a moment. No one has a family that big, so on the bumper sticker. So tell us, Danny, how did you get to this point? We've been talking about connections and networking. Like, what's transpired here?
well, I know many of you, and you may know me from New Millennium Communications. We were one of the first 10 partners, Claris partners when it was Claris Solutions Alliance, before it was the FileMaker Solutions Alliance and FileMaker Business Alliance. Been doing this for a long time, making plugins for developers and building an accounting application in FileMaker. And had a few partners along the way, including, for the folks here who know, Todd Geist, Wim DeCourt, and others in the community who were always technically strong, but I mostly ran the business myself. And there were others who were in management, we had leadership team, but I was the owner. And until 2017, when Scott Love, who was a co-founder of Reliant, joined me as my partner. And we grew the business significantly together. And to Scott's credit, we brought in some very strong people. We grew to about 30 people. But if anything, we grew too fast. Some of the quality control was lost. And also some of the strengths that Scott and I both had were in similar areas, but also did not, I did not realize a certain dream for myself, which was some freedom from running the business. Scott was a visionary and a sales guy, but not helping me do what I love to do. And so he left in 2023, and we had worked with Brandon, brought 5 or 6 people to Coden, some of our strongest team members.
All right.
And we started talking, last Engage. He goes, you should meet this guy.
Yes, literally just down the hall.
Yeah.
Grabbed a room, and again, if you can't catch a similar vibe, the relationship aspect and the networking aspect is so key that a lot of times, again, on this hamster wheel, you're not thinking about connections. And even for me, I'm like, I'm putting 2 amazing people into a room. I'm not involved, but for me, it wasn't, what am I going to get out of this? What's going to happen? Like, do I get my cut? It was like, good people, and I would rather put that together and see others win and believe that that's going to come back and those kinds of things, or else you would never network like this, right? So I'd put these 2 great partners and owners in a room, and I say, I think, based on what I know, this is going to be a relationship that's going to take off. Keep me posted. Let me know what happens. And so a year later, here we are. So just tell us, Danny, like, as you strolled in now thinking and looking up at the screen of 50 plus people, like, obviously each of you, Adam and Danny, had these turbulent waters or had tested it and things didn't work out. But there's a resiliency where both of you said, I know who I am and what I'm not, and I'm going to continue to pursue getting to this place where I'm actually enjoying the business I'm a part of and in, right? So what did it feel like when you strolled up this year?
Or this year, you know, people have asked me, and it's really mostly relief. That is,
I think ditto. I use the same word, my friend.
How many could use relief out there? Anybody? Yeah. So, I mean, that's Rajiv. Obviously, tell us now. This is the next pillar. This is the next plateau. For most, like thinking of having or being a 50-person team, many of you can relate to the one person show. Many of you feel like the Magnificent Seven. Many of you feel like maybe where you were at with the 25, and now you're at 55. So, are there layers of growth as an individual or as an owner, or how do you get to recognize beyond self-awareness? Are there any other keys you would think of, like, because for most people this may look intimidating up there, right? But you're not doing it solo, which is why all of you have said this word relief, right? Is because it's team and partnership that's actually
divide and conquer
and driving this, right?
Yeah, I think trust is kind of the biggest thing for me, right? Is I wouldn't be up here with these guys if I didn't kind of trust them blindly. Like, there's no, I don't care what it is in all aspects of my business and life, right? Is I surround myself with people that I blindly trust. And I think, you know, for us, we have a phenomenal leadership team, right? Is I have to be okay with letting people do what they're really good at, right? Like, as Danny mentioned, like, he is the technical guru for us. Adam's the sales guy. I'm going to let them have their lane, and I'm going to take care of the things in between, type thing. And it's making sure that we have the right people in place that can execute on the things and the vision that we create. Yeah. That's the part of us, you know, that's my role now. It's kind of, how do I steer the ship? And making sure that we have kind of everybody together, rowing as one, if everyone's probably heard that term, but making sure everyone's doing the same thing, right? And they're doing things that they absolutely love. At the end of the day, right, that's for me, is leaving the corporate America world that was the one thing for me, is like, I want to do something that I love every single day. And these guys have enabled that. Yeah. And just as a proxy, this is the result of that, right? Yeah. And we want to make sure everybody in the organization kind of does that thing. So like one of the things that I've done recently is I try to meet with every single person, every little circle on there, and I ask the questions. There's two things I ask. It's, if you could make your dream job, what would it be? Right? Tell me what it is, exactly what you want to do. I'll figure out how to make sure we do that. The other one is I ask them what their superpower is, right? And one of the things you'll notice about the three of us is we have three very different skill sets,
Yes.
right? And I don't think there's any benefit of having two of the same, right? And every individual in this room, whereas yes, we're all developers or all this different things, but every single person has a unique superpower.
Yeah.
So we try to create a team where everybody is collectively greater than the individuals. All right, and when people can hit those pieces, then magical things happen.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I just got to say, it was an honor and privilege to be asked to MC this, because I thought, man, this is, to me, at least since I've been around, the second biggest partnership and merger that I've seen come to fruition like this. And I feel like at some point, everybody in here can relate to somebody's aspect of this story, right? I think everybody has had this unique journey, so it's culminated here. And we wanted to leave space, because this isn't a session normally that you may be a part of, and I certainly haven't heard about one of these since the Proof Guys merger. So there's got to be some questions out there or some desires, and so we wanted to give a few minutes to be able to pick the brains of these three fine gentlemen. If you have anything that you're curious about, I see that hand. Ian, what do you got?
I mean, it's great news. Congratulations to both of you. Thank you. But sorry, three of you. But I just want to say, in terms of size, you're kind of at a tricky point that basically, say, systems that work at a company of 20 people need to be reinvented, and your growth to say 100, you're essentially going to have to reinvent again.
Yep.
But how are you dealing with the integrating the different systems between the companies?
We have Danny.
Yeah.
That's his question.
No, it's actually a great question. You can jump into here, right? Is going into this, we knew we had to reinvest pretty heavily to address those things, right? And that's one thing to keep in mind. Every time you grow, you have to reinvest in the business, right? And that's where I've seen many businesses fail, because they grow and they stop reinvesting. They just focus on the thing up front, right? So as we did this, we realized that we are going to do it in a methodical way, and investing heavily to rebuild and restructure ourselves we probably won't build for 50, we probably will build for what would scale to 75 type thing. So looking ahead a little bit, but making sure we want to make our developer, our team's life as easy as possible. And if it means that we have to spend money on things to make their lives easier, that's ultimately what we're going to do. I don't know if you'd add.
Yeah. Well, Rajiv brings a strong background to this problem. Sometimes we're talking about how are we going to do this merge Fullcity and Codance and put these teams together. Well, when we merged E-Trade into Morgan Stanley,
Totally relatable.
Tracks. That tracks.
Okay, so you've been through.
Yeah. So one of the benefits I've had in my career was I've got to be part of a couple M&As on the buy side and sell side, and some of the intricacies that come with that, and ultimately where like big organizations mess this up all the time, right? And I've learned a lot of things from that. Now I'm sure we're going to make some stumbles on the way, and that's okay, right? But with things that we've done that I've learned in the past, I think is going to bring us to make this hopefully a smoother transition.
and what I've been doing for most of the 30 years that I've been consulting using FileMaker is building business management software and helping companies grow that are in this size. And
Right.
we've taken companies public using our accounting system. We've helped them merge. We've helped them build new systems as they grow. And it's a very familiar space for me.
It's great. Take another question, but I think too, based on this trust factor, I mean, you guys were very honest with one another. You even told me yesterday that like PMs saw different projects and things. Mm-hmm. Some of us are so fear-driven, we won't even say what our client is to somebody, let alone let a PM from another company, when you're not inked in a deal, start to look at behind the scenes. And so that level of trust seems to permeate throughout this whole process. So quality people going into business together seems to be a key element here.
And knowing that everybody has the best intention, right? Everybody has the best intentions, and we trust that about our teams. And Danny did the same, and we saw that right away. That was culturally something we shared.
That's really awesome. Yeah. Got another question out there? I see that hand in the back. Kate?
This is fantastic. I really
enjoyed the session so much. Thank you for sharing your story. I'm noticing it says Codens, a Fullcity company. Can you explain, what you're doing in terms of the entity or your decision to do that? Like, to not fully merge. I mean, I guess I'm not unclear, but if you could kind of explain keeping the two systems.
Well, first of all, the announcement was yesterday. Monday.
Not done yet? No.
Sorry. So we're arriving here. This is a community where Codens is a very well-known brand, or relatively well-known. We want to make sure that there's continuity. If we just sort of disappeared and became Fullcity, that would be confusing for this community, but also really for ourselves. We have strong web traffic to our website, a brand for our clients. We are going to remain Codens for now. At some point, we may decide that should be a subsidiary brand, or we may decide that we'll just become Fullcity. We haven't needed to cross that one yet. It hasn't been quite long enough.
Yeah, it's like we're doing things in a way that is methodical in a sense, right? I've said it a couple of times, and it's like I've seen companies rush these things and it blows up miserably. Mm-hmm. So Codens and team has been a phenomenal brand. So it's just how do we start kind of bridging the gap, and eventually over time we'll kind of see where that leads.
Smart.
And most importantly, I think you said it, but I want to underscore the customers, right? To the customers, all of a sudden that abrupt change is a splash of hot water or cold water, right? And could be a little, oh, what does that mean? It would just generate a lot of questions and
dev change could throw a customer off, let alone this.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Right.
Smart
exactly.
move. Good. Okay. A few minutes left. Any other questions? Burning back there. Yeah, go ahead.
So first of all, I'm intrigued by the fact that Brandon is trying to hide in the shadows and remove himself. You referenced to 3 gentlemen and anything, but when you go back into the conversation that you all had, even someone that is not a position of CEO, CRO, or anything can be instrumental in this kind of growth. Creating those connections doesn't have to come from the top necessarily.
And I like you. We got to chat after.
Yeah. And also, I like the fact that you guys used 4 slides to show this incredible growth. While if you really do a chart, there will be this kind of stuff. Of course, you did more things right that you did wrong over the years, but you didn't do everything right. The one thing that I noticed is that the whole conversation was about the internal factors that help you make decisions and grow. We haven't really touched a lot on the external factors and how good you were at selling yourself out there. And one thing is, for the last probably 15, 20 minutes, we haven't mentioned the platform at all, okay? And things that both Rajiv and Adam has mentioned is our clients don't really need to know what tools we use for this, which is great. You guys know that the Claris platform is the perfect tool for your job, but you go out there and you sell value. How do you do that? Because most people that I know here present themselves as a FileMaker company. I'm sure that, for instance, Danny, you have, for most of your career, sold yourself as a FileMaker company, right? But you haven't. So can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah. You want me to take that?
You can start.
All right. So how do we do? So we ask customers. We're brought into an organization to help solve their problems, right? To help them innovate, to help them grow, et cetera. So starting with just the basic conversation of where do you feel you need us? What are the challenges you have? Not even, actually, I shouldn't say that. Where do you feel you need us? Not even less focused than that. Where do you see yourselves? Where do you want to grow? Right? What kind of obstacles do you have? And then we start ideating on that. Okay. So how do I get in the door? Talk to people, work my network. Like I said, I've been doing this for 25 years in this community, so it really helps to do that. But go ahead,
I think that's the right question, right? Is how do you get in the door? Because that's a very different ocean to swim in, right? When you're just saying I give you technology solutions, right? There's a lot there. It really does come down to networking is a really big component of what we do. I know I travel a lot. I was telling these guys or someone earlier, I spent 65 days in hotels last year. right? And we spend a lot of money on travel and those type of things, but it's going and having dinner and going and doing these pieces, and it's the conversations tend to always evolve into pain points, right? You talk about pain points, and from the pain points, we say, okay, let me go figure out how to solve it for you. It's never really about, hey, I have this thing, where does this thing fit, right? Pardon? Sorry?
You are creating for yourself chances to have those conversations.
Exactly. It's like we go out, if it's not from a referral basis, right? We network for different things and different components of. Brandon mentioned a key point here, right? Is like as I talk to people in network, if they have a problem, it may not always be us to solve. But I'm fortunate enough that I have a pretty large network, but I connect people all the time. Right? And to Brandon's point, is like if you're helping others, it comes back full circle, right? And if you're just doing the right thing, and also just like that can be daunting, right? It's not something that happens overnight. It's something you kind of have to commit to over time. And the conversations, I will tell you, I'll give you one quick example of, you've all probably been faced with the comment of, oh, FileMaker, that thing's still around, right? Like I'm sure everyone here has had that, right? I had a conversation with somebody, business owner, extremely successful. And he told me his problem. I'm like, yep, we can fix it in this time frame. It's going to be fast. Awesome, yep, go ahead. By the way, what do you guys use? He asked me this. I said, oh, it's Claris FileMaker. So he's there looking on his laptop. He's like, this is amazing. Where else can I use it? Right? So if you think about just those two reactions, right? Whereas someone in the finance space or whatever it may be, who is just, again, looking for help on their problems, there's nothing better than FileMaker. I will die on that sword, right? That is the answer. And when you start taking that out of the equation for the client, it makes the conversation much better.
I just want to add something when it comes to the networking component. Is something somebody told me early on that I think about all the time, is that you, as an individual, you build trust with somebody when you refer them to somebody else. When you speak highly of another individual, that actually enables a lot more trust between you and the person who you're speaking to, right? So when I give people compliments about Danny, I do it because I'm in it for myself. No, I do it because, but to the point, networking is about finding those individuals and then being able to refer right within your network to people, and that nurtures, that grows over time.
If you think about, if anyone here has ever done renovation on their home, or anything, what's the first thing you do when you look for a contractor? You ask somebody, hey, do you have a referral? Do you know somebody that you trust? Right. You want to know. So this, if you think about it, right, what a client is doing in terms of investing in a platform is one of the biggest decisions they'll make. The unknown is scary, right? So they're going to refer. Like that's where you're going to have a comfort zone, right? So if you can start to create that comfort with people, that's where it definitively changes things, right? I'll say part of it too, like, our team does a phenomenal job on the Google AdWords looking for existing FileMaker clients, right? We do a phenomenal job of that. We have a bifurcated strategy in we're going to look for FileMaker clients, but we're also have a very different strategy as well for not.
Really good. I always say, hey, it's great. I always want to feel like I'm going to make a deposit before I ask for a withdrawal, right? And so that's, to me, it goes back to that feeling of if I'm asking and requesting a meeting, even if it's from a client, and I'm going to try to bring up the invoice or what do you think about this or all these other things, then be like, oh, by the way, who do you know? Like, that's not the approach. I would call a meeting just to be like, hey, are you happy? Are you pleased? What can we do to improve? And who else do you know that would benefit from what you've experienced? And folks, inside sales is a lot easier than outside sales because you already have rapport and trust built. Hopefully, when you're doing good work and have a great team, that's pretty easy to then ask for that referral. Saw that hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have kind of two people that are in a position to do strategic leadership type activities or roles. And but both of us are technical people. And we end up getting stuck in the weeds a lot. Very little, it often feels like nobody's steering the ship because we're kind of so involved with helping out junior developers and our support staff and all of that. So do you guys feel like that there's is there any hope for us, or is bringing in a third party, a partner that is non-technical but has the skill set of Rajiv, is that the only option?
I think that goes to what Rajiv said earlier about finding complementary skills, right? And I had been through a partnership before that had the same issue that Danny, when you said that before, it resonated with me and it reminded me, right? Like having the same problems, right? Having the same skills sometimes isn't great, isn't going to give you a force multiplier, right? We automatically, immediately as soon as we started speaking, we started joking with each other about how different we were, skills, how different we were in execution and everything. And yes, but I think that's a common issue amongst technical people, right? Is what do I have to do to get there, right? So there is hope. I think there is hope.
Yeah, the piece that I would add to that, right, is you got to be very disciplined, right? And the work's always going to be there, right? You got to make sure you're disciplined in trying to keep yourself out of that as much as possible. And it may not necessarily mean hiring someone like me type thing. It may just mean hiring another developer, right? So you can kind of push that work to that person so you have that dedicated time, right? A lot of things that you probably have, if you think about your plan for the year, right? Making sure you're doing some of those strategic things so you know where you're getting to and be very disciplined on kind of holding yourself to that.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Sure. Do you have any resources that you would recommend as far as like developing skills that are more similar to yours for a technical person?
That's a good question. There's
An amazing conference.
Yeah, in September.
There's a book. I'll get your information after. There's a book that I have. It talks about how do you look through the forest through the trees type thing, right? And how do you make sure you know the fundamentals of a business? And it really comes down to just having a plan, right? If you have a plan, it forces you to think through what I can do and what I can't do, right? Like, I don't know how many people here, like, do you do your own budget as a component of that, right? Doing those little things makes a drastic difference into how you approach the business long term.
Or if you're like Adam, finding someone else that does it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good point. And even non-technical people struggle with this same thing, and I call it the hamster wheel or working in the business instead of on the business, right? And so I'm not a technical person. I'm not a developer. Never check my code, but I would say that you can get swept up in this same thing where you feel super busy, and at the end of the week, I'm like, I didn't actually take intentional time on strategy, forecasting. Even what everyone mentioned, this self-awareness to recognize my own strengths and weaknesses. So sometimes you don't even know what are the gaps I'm trying to fill that I can't be to everything. So for me, it is on my calendar. It says, get up, walk away, wherever your spot is, to be more strategic and think. You have to carve that time out weekly and monthly if you're trying to work on your business, or you'll get swept up and never give this the time and effort it's needed.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's a big leap, right? And that's we've talked about all the good things of this, right? And I think I mentioned a little bit is that one step back for two steps forward. That's every business does that that's successful, right? Is like you have to reinvest. Like when we originally joined in March, was it 21? One of the things we told our business partners was that every dollar that the company actually makes, we're going to put back in the company. And I was like, that's going to be our commitment for the next couple of years. So we all have to be okay with that. And it was a collective decision. Me, myself, I'll say personally, it was a different financial path for me in terms of the banking world for this, but it was like, I was okay with that, right? Because I wasn't looking at 1 year, 2 years type thing. I told my wife, I was like, listen, if I'm going to do it, now's the time to do it. And so I made that leap, but it's scary when you first do it, but when you have that plan and you can see that vision, when you kind of go down that jersey, it's really fulfilling.
Yeah, sure. I mean, same, right? So the way we structured my compensation was done is that when I had my lifestyle business, it was like, oh, I want to go out for sushi tonight, business card, right? It was like just that freedom of being able to use the money in the business as much as I could. But also, we talked about it and said, okay, well, I got to take a step back and reinvest. So I think that mindset is something that really is part of that strategic component.
All right, we're landing this plane, but if anybody's got anything burning or any final words.
Feel free to reach out, to any of us. If you have questions, by all means, happy to talk to you more.
And to Brandon's comment. You have a conference coming up in Greenville?
Yeah, thanks, Danny. So they call it Road to Engage, which are similar regional conferences that are happening. We run a conference called Build, Grow, Learn. It's in Greenville, South Carolina. It's a beautiful place of the country. I moved there, didn't know that Joe Scarpetta lived there, who just won the Design Excellence Award. We realized we were neighbors 8 minutes away, and we both had a passion for, business is hard. Technical sessions and Engage are great, but our goal was to do leadership development, business strategy, sales and marketing best practices. So we do have a conference in September, sponsored by Claris, who's a sponsor of that, which is specifically targeted towards small business owners, entrepreneurs who want these skills. We've got 30 different speakers from all over the country coming in that we felt like were experts in these particular areas that we all struggle in. So he and I sat down and said, we're HR, what do you do? Budgeting and finance, sales, geez. So we found people who that was their superpower and then invited them to come pass that on. So if you want more information, love to chat with you about that. So appreciate that, Danny.
One more plug. Alexis has a conference coming up soon, too.
Yeah, come on. Yes.
You can always go further in Toronto.
They do, yes. I've heard good things about this conference.
So. Across the border in that direction.
Also a positive.
And there's poutine.
No, well, yeah, you can always get stuck there.
Yeah.
And what is the name of the conference?
It's called Elevate FM, and it's really about, not necessarily groundbreaking things, but like how can we all be better versions of the developers that we are. And so we have just a short one-day conference with a training day. If you really want to, you can fly into the downtown airport and be out in one day. You don't even have to take a hotel if you really want to just do it. But I'm super excited. We don't have an English speaking conference. The Montreal folks have been going strong for years. They're mostly French. So I was like, all right, well, why don't we start it and just do it?
Looking forward to that.
Way to be bold.
Wim DeCourt speaking.
Wim DeCourt, Vince Bonanno's coming, and then we have a couple first-time speakers as well.
Charlie Bailey's coming from Codens.
Fullcity.
Awesome.
And Wei Hao from Direct Impact. We've got FM Metaforms is sending a speaker, and Theologic is sending a speaker as well. So it's like kind of a diverse group, and it'll be at the Toronto Hilton downtown. Lots to do at that time of year in Toronto. So please stop.
Thanks, Alexis.
I know,
Appreciate
early
that.
bird until March 31st. So.
All right. I like it. Hey, can you do me a favor and just give a round of applause for this awesome presentation and merger? Thank you, guys.